Yo, 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 what it is, what it was, what's it gonna be?
Welcome.
Welcome to the latest episode of the Gen Expertise Show, episode 29, entitled Fool's Paradise and the Gen Z Conundrum. We are your host, Main and Rants, a.k.a. Bronx and Bougie. Give it up, give it up, give it up, yo. Yo, what's up, good brother?
What's up, man? How you doing?
I'm chilling, my man, I'm chilling.
Good.
Everything good with your family? Good? Life good?
Yeah, everything's good, man. Actually, I got some good news to share.
Ooh.
My daughter was in a art show. She does art, and she was in an art show out here, and she actually sold one of her pieces for $50. And
Ooh.
and it may not sound like much to some, but like for a 13-year-old girl, it was a big, exciting event for us. But that was nice. So we got to hang out a little bit, and we did that. And also, I have a facts over funny.
Yes.
So last episode we talked about the Freedom House ambulance service, right? And I just wanted to clear up a detail here because I talked about the one of the processes that they were trained to do, or one of the procedures that they were trained to do rather, and it was the process of intubation, right? And shout out to our high school friend again, Cookie Head. Thank you for this. Dre actually works in healthcare, so he corrected me on this one. So I said intubation, but what I was actually describing was a tracheotomy. And in my mind, I literally was picturing somebody doing a tracheotomy in the street outside of a van.
I was thinking of it too.
To be honest with you, but intubation is a different process where the tube is actually inserted down the throat of the person into the lung, and it helps them to breathe. Rather, because a tracheotomy, you're actually making an incision in the person's trachea and then inserting the tube into that incision, right? So there's a difference. But I said the right procedure, but I know I had given like a brief description of what that was, and what I was describing was actually a tracheotomy, not an intubation. But intubation was actually one of the procedures that the Freedom House ambulance service was trained to do from their, from their van, or from the as paramedics on mobile on the road, right? So yep.
There you
So
go.
I just wanted to clear that up. That was my facts over funny. So
All right.
Rance, would you do the honors?
Absolutely. This portion of that Gen Expertise podcast has been brought to you by We Effed Up. Made possible by attentive listeners and viewers like you.
Yes. Yeah. But yeah, thank you to because I actually enjoy when people correct me.
Yes.
Because it makes me feel like wow, people are listening pretty attentively if they're picking up on these details and they're getting back to us and correcting some things, right? So I appreciate that. It shows that people are really listening.
Yeah, it shows that they're invested.
Yeah. I like it.
So, Fool's Paradise and the Gen Z Conundrum. I was reading the other day and I was looking at some science stuff because that's what I do. And we always like to give the people something that they probably wouldn't expect from us.
Right.
And I came across the Universe 25 experiment. And the Universe 25 experiment was by John Calhoun, who's an ethologist.
Easy for you to say.
Ethologist. From the National Institute of Mental Health. The goal of the study was to study the effects of overpopulation in mice. All right. So what they did was he set up a 101 square inch mouse haven, or a mouse utopia as they also refer to it, with 250 nesting boxes, unlimited food, water, no predators, and controlled temperatures. This 101 square inch mouse haven had a capacity to fit 4,000 mice. And it started with 4 mice, 4 males and 4 females. So that's how he started this experiment off.
So 8 mice.
Yes, 8 mice in total. I said 4 mice?
Yeah. Nah, but I think everybody knows what you meant.
Yeah. So he started with 8 mice, 4 male, 4 female, and he kind of went in phases. So they had phase one, which was the first 100 days of the experiment. And the mice reproduced naturally in those 100 days. The population increased by double every 55 days. So they were getting busy, son. And over this 100 days, like the social structure started to form. And once the social structure started to form, they moved into phase two. And in phase two, the population hit 600. So there's still enough food, there's still enough space, there's still enough everything for these mice. There's still the paradise and the utopia that they planned for it to be for them. But what started happening was cliques started to form. And with those cliques, you started to have male dominance. And you had the dominant males who started to take over the best nesting places. And the weaker males, they became subdued and they withdrawn. They started withdrawing from the population.
Right.
That's what happened when they hit 600, only 600, and this stuff already starts happening. So then even the mother, the female mice, they started abandoning their young, and the infant mortality plummeted, all within just a short time span. And then it went to what he called the behavioral sink. So the behavioral sink, hold on, I wrote this down. It's basically as the society broke down before its resources did, and it just started to become total chaos. This was a funny thing that they had the beautiful ones. So the beautiful ones were the mice that withdrew from society, and all they cared about was they avoided mating and fighting, and all they cared about was like grooming, their personal grooming, and they even stopped reproducing. And that's what happened in phase two. And then it went on to phase three, which was the total collapse of the population. And this happened in about, let me get this correct. This happened in about 600 days. So by 600 days, the population peaked at 2,200, but reproduction fell to zero. The younger mice never learned social behavior, and aggression increased, and eventually every single mouse died.
Yeah. I read a little bit about this too, and he talks about how the whole point was to kind of show or illustrate how overcrowding leads to a breakdown in social norms. And like you described, like the social norms break down even before the resources break down. And he provided them with more than enough water, more than enough food, the kind of like you said, like a utopia, a perfect environment for them. There's no predators. They have bedding. They have little apartments, basically set up in this structure that he built for them. But it shows like overcrowding caused them to kind of give up on any sort of social roles, right? Because when I was reading about it, he described the fact that there's actually roles that take place within a community, right? And the mice were showing that if once they were overcrowded, they were confused about what role they were supposed to play. And even like you described, like the females, they started to just go and kind of hide out in their bedding, and they abandoned their young. All of the mice just forgot how to mate, basically. They stopped mating and eventually would die off. And I guess I don't know what do you think he was trying to prove with this? Because it almost like when I'm reading it and I read it and then I watched a short video about it as well, and they were saying that I guess initially he was trying to draw some parallels between what was happening with the mice and kind of a cautionary tale for human beings and if we're overcrowded, right?
Yeah.
But they said that this fell apart, in so to speak, because no one ever could observe this same behavior like in any other setting, right? Like, cause he kind of created this artificial overcrowding, and then to compare it to humans, there's so many variables with human beings that the idea of overcrowding causing all of these different issues, it just never really bore itself out, so to speak, right? And then the other problem I read about was that he said that he wasn't actually trying to prove that at all at some point, because the part that is missing sometimes from like people talking about this experiment is that in some cases he redid the experiment, right? And he said in some cases some of the mice were resilient and some of the mice like burrowed like tunnels into into the enclosure and they started to create more space for themselves, right? He
Yeah.
said so there was varying degrees of like behavioral response to the overcrowding. But in this particular case, like the most famous one, I guess, is the one where overcrowding caused the breakdown of social norms. But it didn't happen in every case of the experiment. So I feel like that's why this experiment is not as well known.
Hmm.
And I even read it's not really brought about or talked about much rather in scientific journals and scientific documentation because of the fact that it felt like it wasn't consistent enough and it wasn't repeatable enough, right?
Yeah.
Um, but all of that aside, I think that we have our own observations of what happens in overcrowded society,
Yes.
right? Like, so what do you think of that? Like, do you think that this is a parallel, or do you think it's just a kind of a one-off, almost a
I think
coincidence?
so. I know like some scientists here and there, and I know like with the other experiments, what I would like to know exactly is where. So you have like lab rats. You know what I'm
Hmm.
saying? And they just grow up in this environment. They don't know anything outside of a lab.
Right.
So did you use those lab rats or did you find like some rats in the wild? Some mice from the wild. You know what I mean? Because
Hmm.
they still have a lot of their instincts. Instead of lab mice are basically just bred to like run mazes and get food handed to them,
Yeah,
and
they're
they don't
domesticated.
they're domestic. Yeah, yeah, they're domesticated. So I would like to know. I would think that maybe they used a different set of mice, like a different type of mice, maybe not such a domesticated set of mice for the later experiments. But the whole thing that I found the most interested out of it was that they still had plenty of space. And I think that even he didn't expect for it to be as psychological on the mice as it
Hmm.
was, because the one thing that I kept hitting on when I saw was like, yo, there's plenty of space. They had plenty of space, but it was a perception of them feeling overcrowded, them feeling like they didn't have a lot of space.
Was it their natural tendency? Like, I don't remember this part exactly.
Yeah.
I vaguely remember, I should say, but when I'm reading about this, it felt like the mice had a natural tendency to kind of want to commune together, right?
Yeah.
And that caused some of the feeling of overcrowding, right?
Yeah, because
And
they started
then
huddling up,
yeah, they started to huddle
you
up,
know.
and with so many mice, it's hard to form the your social roles become hard to form. And they said
Mhm.
that that's when the males actually the weaker males would just give up
Yeah.
on any type of competition for resources, even though there's plenty of resources, but they
Mhm.
still had this perception that there's so many of them that
Mhm.
there's a competition that forms, and then eventually, because of the overcrowding, some of them gave up.
Yes, they wanted to almost like they wanted so hard to be a part of the pack. They didn't even realize like they could have possibly started their own pack as well over here on this side. Like they just totally crowded probably one particular area. That's why ants are so gangster. When you think about ants, like I watch a lot of stuff on ants. Anyway, there are roles, bro. They have their
Yeah,
roles and they stick to their roles. It
right,
doesn't matter. Even if you try to domesticate an ant and you put them in an ant farm, they're always going to have their roles. You
right,
have the queen, you have the workers, you have the soldiers. You know,
right.
they even have, when I've seen examples in their tunnels where they even have graveyards
Mm.
and they have bathrooms and graveyards. So that they yeah, so when they they just stick to they're like programmed to do what they want to do. They programmed to do what they need to do.
Yeah. The same with
Um,
bees, right? Like bees are like
yeah,
that with the a bee colony is like similar to that, right? Where every bee has a role.
yeah.
Some bees are just out to get food
Hmm.
for the young and feed them until they grow strong enough to come out, and they know their role almost immediately.
Yeah.
Um yeah,
The
that's
hive
yeah.
mentality seems to work best for
Yeah, the
insects, but
hive.
not very well for mammals, it seems. Do you know what I'm saying? So you
So but when I was first like you told me about this, right? And when I
hmm.
first started to read about it, and like I said, I watched actually a couple of videos about this. And what I expected to see from it, because I think this happened, I don't know if it was like 1968 was when he came up with this, and then maybe
Yes.
1970, around 1972 was like,
73 was when it was like I think the last mouse was dead by
okay,
73. Mm-hmm.
That's what it was then. So,
Mm-hmm.
this is happening in the 60s, right? So I'm immediately thinking, okay, he's gonna draw some parallel to overcrowding in inner cities or like in urban areas.
Yeah.
But I don't know if I didn't really get that from any of the reading. I did get that some some movies and some folks like took his experiment and used it as inspiration. But
Mm-hmm.
I never got to the point where I had any proof that this was being used to explain some sort of pathology that would form amongst
Mm-hmm.
people in the inner city or people that are in like, let's say like a housing project or something like that, just to use an example, right?
Yeah.
Or low rises or something like that, or or any other place where it's like low income housing where people tend to be kind of stacked on top of each other
Mm-hmm.
in this kind of overcrowded situation where you have like a bunch of buildings that are really in close proximity and you have people concentrated in a small area, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's where I really thought this was going, but
Yeah.
I don't know if you got that out of it, but it never got there for me. Like I didn't find any evidence that that's where they were going with it.
Yeah, you can kind of stumble across your own conclusions about it, but I don't think that
That's
was
what I
really
felt
his
like.
intent.
It
Yeah,
felt
like
like he was just allowing everybody to come to their own conclusion. Like it was like pick your
yeah.
own ending or pick
Mm-hmm.
your own moral of the story type of thing. But
Yeah.
I wonder if that's why this experiment, like I said, like I read somewhere that the experiment doesn't really get the it doesn't get like its kudos, right? Like it doesn't get
Mm-hmm.
mentioned a lot, even though it was an an extensive experiment. It went on for a few years. All the mice did die. There's some conclusion to be drawn from it,
Mm-hmm.
but it doesn't really get its due in terms of documentation and medical journals. It doesn't get referenced a whole lot. So that was one of the things. Like I was just looking for like what am I supposed to
Yeah.
get from
I
this,
was
or
looking for
what
the
am
thread.
yeah, I'm looking for like what
Mm-hmm.
the thread is. Like what am I comparing this to? Like
Yeah. It was
and
like you can stumble across some because you can say one of the main arguments also was people were like, yo, mice are not humans.
That's
So
it.
yeah, they were like
So this
mice are
is
not humans.
that's
Mm-hmm.
an interesting conversation too, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
um I forget who said this, but basically the same thing. Like I follow a couple of different kind of influencers on online, like doctors and so on, and they're saying that the mistake that we make is that because science uses animals that are kind of maybe close to our behavior
Mm-hmm.
for experimentation, I think we're making a mistake sometimes of making like a one for one or apples to apples comparison with how these
Yeah.
animals behave and how humans behave. What happens is that we completely discount our ability to reason and, for lack of better terms, whatever you want to call it, like but just for lack of better terms, let's call it the spirit or the soul, or
Mm-hmm.
maybe you call it the mind or the ability to reason, the ability to assess your own thoughts and behaviors. Um, social norms that only social norms that are kind of like encoded, but they're also documented because of years and years of trial and error, right? They're
Mm-hmm.
not just natural animal instincts, for lack of better terms. And I think that
Yeah.
sometimes when experiments get done on animals, because some of these animals are kind of close and maybe close to us, like even primates, but
Mm-hmm.
they're not human, right?
Yeah.
um and I think sometimes that's one of the mistakes that not I don't know if scientists make this mistake, but I think that lay people, even including myself, we make the mistake of like looking at science and saying, okay, because these scientists found out that these beings that are similar to us or these animals that are similar to us behave this way, humans will probably have some tendency to act the same way, and we
Mm-hmm.
completely discount the ability to reason, the mind, whatever you want to call it, the spirit, a sense of
Mm-hmm.
morality and ethics and whatever else, right? Love and the way we express that, and even our anger and whatever the case may be, like the way we express emotion is unique. No matter how similar animals might be,
Yeah.
I still think humans are extremely unique, right, in the way we
Mm-hmm.
express many things, right? That I don't know if science accounts for that enough.
I mentioned this in one of our previous episodes. The SAID, SAID. specific adaptation to an imposed demand. To compare a human to a lab mouse, I think it's not a fair comparison. Basically, we're top of the food chain, dog. We're here because of our brain, because of our cognitive thinking skills, because of our ability to adapt, because of our what separates us from the apes is a disposable thumb. The fact that, you know what I mean, we can
Yeah,
one
the
digit on
opposable
the
thumb.
hand,
Yeah.
one digit of the hand pretty much cause us to rise up and walk on 2 feet because of our need to carry things. You know what I'm saying? So,
Yeah. And it's an opposable thumb, because if it's disposable, that means you could like toss
that's
it in
right.
the
You can
trash.
take it off.
You could take it off and toss
You
it in
can
the
take it off and
trash.
toss it. I can get a new one, like a GI Joe action figure or something. Yeah,
Yeah.
one of
But
those. So,
all right. But yeah.
so I feel like the experiment itself was an interesting experiment. It was very interesting to see it. But like you, I was kind of waiting to see where the other shoe was going to drop, you know?
Right. I was waiting for the punchline because in my mind, like I start to, and maybe this is the point of it to a certain extent, like you said, like maybe he's looking for observers and others to come and draw their own conclusions to a certain extent, right? But that's definitely what I started to do right away. I started to make the comparison to, you know, between these mice that are in an overcrowded place and like, you know, maybe the inner city and people that are in an overcrowded situation in the city, right?
Yeah.
But the difference there too is that he's creating a controlled environment where
Yes.
like he's providing water, food, you know, bedding,
Perfect temperature,
the perfect
everything.
condition,
No
perfect
natural
temperature for them,
predators.
no natural predators.
So they actually became each other's natural predators. That was the
Right.
crazy part about
So
it.
so it's a utopia. But then the other thing I thought about, Rance, and this is
It's a main moment.
yeah, it's definitely a main moment, because you know what I thought of? You ever seen The Dark Knight Rises, the Batman movie that last of the trilogy?
Absolutely.
So in The Dark Knight Rises, Bane says to Batman while they're fighting, he says, "Victory has defeated you," right? And what I thought about, like the reason I'm comparing these two things is because they say that like comfort is kind of the enemy of progress, right? Like, or the enemy of like your ambition is that you're comfortable. You become complacent, you become lazy, and you basically become soft, and you stop fighting. You stop your desire to work, your desire to fight, your desire to keep moving forward and advancing kind of stops because you're comfortable. Like as soon as you win, that's kind of a dangerous moment because there's no, you know, what else is there to achieve? So you always have to have a goal in mind and a purpose.
Yes.
And I feel like that's what happened when Bane is talking to Batman. Like, Batman had pretty much defeated the biggest criminals in the city. He defeated the Joker by that point, and he became soft, right? Because he had there was no more mountains to climb, so to speak.
No more real opposition.
There's no more real opposition. There's no reason to keep, you know, working as hard as you were before, and you lose your purpose. And it feels, and the reason I make that comparison is because it feels like that's what was happening with the mice. And I felt like maybe that's the lesson to humans in this utopia situation that the mice were in, right? Like maybe humans lose their drive and their desire once all their needs are just provided and handed to them, right? So that so The Dark Knight Rises and the Mousetopia, this Universe 25 Mousetopia, are basically you know, a cautionary tale for humans.
I was born in the darkness. One of my favorite lines ever, son. Molded by it.
Yeah. You think the mice are your friends?
Do you feel in charge right now? There's also a saying, I think Arnold Schwarzenegger actually said this. I think it was him. And he said, the wolf on top of the hill is never as hungry as the wolf climbing on his way up the hill.
That's a good one too. But yeah, that's the whole point I was trying to make too, man. Like that, you know, the climb is the purpose, right? Like, you know, they say like you should really think about the journey, not so much the destination, right? And that was that's definitely the parallel that I draw when you think about these mice. and giving them everything they need, just giving it to them.
Yeah, just letting them have it. They just have to wake up and then it's right there. After a while, what do I have to do? Like you don't even it gets to a point too where you don't like if you're a mouse, like as you start getting the dominant mice, you don't even have to really do anything. You just have to probably just be the biggest mouse there and they're just gonna gravitate because they don't
Mhm.
have to fight for the food and you just start looking at people like, yo, you know what? I want all of this for me, yo.
Right,
You know what I mean? You
right,
have
and then
no
and then
pushback.
and there's no pushback. There's no need to kind of learn any skill or any
Yeah.
or play any type of particular role. And
Mhm.
then as the like when they start to procreate, they have youth that are looking to that would normally be looking to the adults or like looking to the older mice for some example of what to do. So they never learn any social skills or they never learn any skills, period,
Yes.
because of the fact that all of the mice are just kind of like just existing. They're not playing any particular role. They just exist. So that's an interesting thing. And I also made this what popped in my head too was this whole thing with artificial intelligence, right? Because the danger one of the dangers that keeps coming up with artificial intelligence, and you probably know this, and our audience probably knows this, is that it comes up often that this fear that AI is going to take over our jobs, especially knowledge work, right? Like, and in the past, stuff like automation and machinery has taken over blue collar work, right?
Mhm.
But with AI, the fear is that AI once, especially once they develop like kind of robots that have tactile skills and like they're able to move things the way like you said, you mentioned the opposable thumbs, right?
Mhm.
Once we once they create robots that are nimble enough and have the tactile skills to do the physical work that we do as well, then that in combination with artificial intelligence will make it so computers and robots could pretty much do anything that a human could do, right? So they talk about that fear of robots and automation and artificial intelligence taking over all human work. People joke around all the time, like, well, I don't, I hate my job or I didn't have to work. But what really happens when you lose your when you lose the fact that you have to work? Um,
Mhm.
like, what's your purpose if you're not striving to do if you don't have to strive to do anything, you don't have to compete for anything,
Yeah.
like, what happens then,
What
right?
happens when everybody gets a trophy, so to speak?
Well, a large part of who you are and how you feel about yourself is tied to what you do, at least for a lot of people, right? I can't speak for everyone, but for a lot of us, you know, one of the first questions people ask you when you meet them, like, "Oh, so what do you do?" It may be a rude question for some, but
Yeah.
here in the United States, it feels like that's one of the first questions that you get asked if the conversation lasts long enough.
Yeah.
It's up there in the top 10 of questions, like, "Hey, so what do you do?" Right? And a lot of people tie their identity eventually to their career or their job, and what they do, their purpose, right, becomes kind of intertwined with their job. So that was another thing I thought about with this whole Mousetopia thing, in this age where they're saying that artificial intelligence and robotics may one day take over all work, and right, what are humans going to do when we get that basic income that they're talking about, like a universal basic income,
Mhm.
as has been brought up as one of the solutions, where if everybody kind of gets a stipend, so to speak, from the government, or from these corporations that are going to be making so much money when they don't have to hire human workers,
Yeah.
what are we going to do when somebody's just handing us money or handing us all the resources we need? What are we going to do to fulfill some sort of sense of purpose, right? So that
Yeah.
was another thing that I thought about that's kind of scary, right? Because
Yeah.
this experiment again was done in the 60s and 70s,
Mhm.
and in a sense, like I was looking for the punchline, but really when you draw your own conclusions, the idea remains relevant even right now in 2026, right? The
Yeah.
idea of losing your purpose, the idea of being part of some overcrowded society where no one has a specific role to play, all your needs are met. That's something that is possible to happen to human beings as well, right? So
Mhm.
that becomes kind of a scary proposition, right?
Yeah. We become like that movie WALL-E. Remember that movie WALL-E, that
Yeah.
Pixar joint? That's some
Yeah, yeah. Absolutely. But yeah, seriously, like
you
that,
know?
like that
That's the
movie predicts
evolution or the
the
de-evolution of us.
right. So
Mhm.
yeah, a movie like that shows what possibly could happen, man, when humans lose their purpose and
Yeah.
everything's kind of automated, everything's handed to us, and it
Mhm.
feels like now more than ever, it's possible that we get to a future where that is actually the case. But you should be aware of it, and you
Hmm.
should give some thought to what would you do if the time comes where no one actually has to do anything in
Hmm.
particular, right? Some people say that in the best case scenario, we go back to like our best selves, right? Like where we start to do exactly what we want to do, which
What we
is
want to do.
we start to help each other. We start to like, do get back to like art or like
Arts, the
or like or spending time with each other. Or the premium experience is gonna be the actual human experience, right? Like if
Mhm.
robots and automation and artificial intelligence can do anything, maybe the premium experience becomes interacting with an actual person for the future. Like maybe that's the big the big deal at that point, right? Like if
Yeah,
everything's automated and robotic, maybe having the human experience becomes the biggest thing or the most important thing, the thing you're
absolutely.
willing to pay for.
And that leads us into our next segue, the Gen Z conundrum. And we happen to be fathers of Gen Zs, Gen Z children. Gen Z children are born between the years of 1997 and 2012. So
Hmm.
their age range is 14 to 29, 13, 14 to 29. Um,
So we're at I'm actually I guess I'm at a cutoff there because
you're at like you're
like
like
I'm
a
right
right
on the
there,
cusp
right
of it
there, right there, right
because
there.
because
And
my daughter
mine
was
is on
actually
its
born in
way.
2013.
My oldest is a 2012.
Okay.
All right. So they're called digital natives because of their the fact that they were born into this new digital age of social
Mm.
media and Zoomers too. They call them Zoomers as well. I didn't know they were also called
I've
Zoomers.
heard that term, but I didn't know what it was.
I heard, you know what? I heard the term used for baby boomers back in the day because baby boomers who started to get into fitness and an active lifestyle started running, jogging, and
Oh, they
being
were
more
called
fit.
Zoomers
So I heard them like people start calling them Zoomers, but I didn't know that they recycled that for the Gen
for
Z.
Gen Z.
Yeah. But
Zoomers. I like it.
as I was reading, for the first time in 100 years, Gen Z is scoring lower on IQ tests and core skills such as memory and focus than their predecessors. So that would be the millennials.
Mm.
Yeah.
Why is that?
Yeah. That's a good question, man. Um and as I was thinking, as I was reading and watching videos on the Universe 25, and especially when it came up to the beautiful ones,
Yeah.
automatically what popped into my head was like Instagram and
Right.
social
Right.
media where you have this withdrawal from the community. I go
Right.
out and I see people with their selfie sticks running or just walking in the street, just talking,
Right.
making stories
Right.
and acting like there's
Right.
somebody on the other end when it's not.
I've seen people posing, like setting up their phone on the
Yes.
ground or like somewhere, like setting up their phones, and then out in the street, like actually kind of performing
Yes.
for whatever they're doing, like whether it's social media or whatever the case may be. But they're kind of performing out in the wild, so to
Yeah.
speak. They're out there setting up their phones and kind of doing stuff for the camera. And
Mhm.
you're right. Like I didn't think about that, but you're right. Like it kind of has a parallel to the beautiful ones when you think about that
Mhm.
Universe 25 experiment. You have
Mhm.
people that have kind of withdrawn from society, so to speak. Or they've withdrawn from human interaction, and they're just
Yeah.
completely online.
They're
Um,
online. And online is, if you think about it, like to draw the parallel, so to speak, or the comparison is you can see how now social media and online, it's so crowded,
I see what you
right?
did there.
It's like their whole existence is in this utopian, this universe 25 type thing where they're so involved, like there's nowhere to run, there's nowhere to hide on social media. And then they totally
Mhm.
withdraw from the outside world, not realizing like there's plenty of room and plenty of space around, but they seem to just be drawn into these crowded areas, which are like the TikToks, the Instagrams, or whatever, the Twitches, whatever social media
Uh-huh.
forms out there with these millions of streams and millions of followers and millions of viewers. So I thought that was I immediately thought, once I heard the beautiful ones, I immediately thought about the Gen Zers, because I had just finished reading articles in the past few weeks about how they have been they're the first generation in 100 years to score lower than their predecessors. I think like the disappearance of arts, I think to have something to do with it as well with the Gen Z, because they process so fast.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like they're like little computers. They process, but I would equate it to like typing equation into your calculator and getting an answer within 5 seconds as soon as you press the equal button.
Mm-hmm.
But that calculator can't screw in a light bulb. You know what I mean?
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like it can't do a lot of things, but it's good at processing. So I feel like because they've grown up with the in the digital era, their processing is so high, so fast. But I think they're losing a little bit of their humanity in the process.
Mm.
You know, you have Amazon now delivering packages to your house basically by
Yeah.
mini helicopters. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
We definitely created a
And the
society
rope.
where like you don't
Hmm.
have to, if you don't want to, and
Yeah,
you don't have to interact as much. You don't have to like there's no labor
yeah.
to get what you need, right? So that's another parallel to the Universe 25, I guess, as well,
Hmm.
that we're creating sort of in a sense, it's part of that utopian situation. Depending on how many resources you actually have, you can
Yes.
kind of like have everything, all your needs met without doing much of anything in terms of effort. Has it gone all the way there where robots and artificial intelligence are actually taking care of all of our labor? But
Hmm.
it feels like we're getting there. And
Yeah.
you're right, like for Gen Zers, the other thing is with the social media and like kind of being born into that, they're kind of so used to and it's so kind of encoded in them that this is the way that you would socialize, right? Like this is the if you want social interaction, you
Hmm.
go online and you start talking to somebody maybe in a chat, right? You go onto somebody's social media and you DM them. Like we're kind of far from the time where people where the expectation would be that you go out and you actually approach people, and I feel like to a certain extent, like people would be kind of like taken aback in some cases if you
Yeah.
actually did approach people in person. I
Hmm.
think we've gotten to the point where people are so used to interacting with each other through technology
Yeah.
that even approaching somebody in person, for younger folks especially, is just like kind of a little bit considered a little bit strange and almost creepy
Hmm.
if you're like kind of running up on people and in person as opposed
Yeah.
to like kind of using the technology as a buffer, at least at first, right? Because it
Hmm.
feels like they're okay with meeting up, but first we have to go through this technology, and kind of fill each other out on here, and then we could take it offline, um if we both agree, right?
Yeah. There's a I want to say it's don't drink your juice in the hood, but it's one of those, I think it's a Wayans movie where there's two guys
Mhm.
standing against a wall, like communicating with each other through a text message or by telephone. And instead of
And they're like
talking
standing
to,
right next to each
yeah,
other, right?
you know what I'm talking about? You remember that? I can't remember what movie
I
that.
don't remember exactly what I don't know if it's like that Don't Be a Menace or I can't
Yeah, I think
remember,
it's
but
one of those spoof movies, you know,
yeah, it's definitely one of those
they're
parody
literally
spoof.
having a conversation without having a conversation.
Right.
And I was like, yo, this is the craziest thing ever. Until one day I'm literally in the house and my wife is in one room, I'm in the other room, and we
And you
text
texted each
message
other.
each other.
Yeah, we
Yeah,
do the
yeah,
same
it
here.
was
Like, yeah,
crazy.
same.
You-
The same here. But to me, I liken that to like, say you had a house that was big enough and you had like an intercom or something. Like, you're not gonna run
Yeah,
upstairs and
yeah.
then rather
We
than
use it
yelling
as
at
a
each other,
tool. Yeah,
yeah, like rather than yelling at each other from upstairs or downstairs or across the
yeah.
whole house,
Hmm.
sometimes we might text each other because it's just easier. If I'm
Yeah.
downstairs in the basement or something and I
Hmm.
know my wife is upstairs, I might text her
Yeah,
and sometimes she'll get it, sometimes she won't. But you're
yeah,
right, like I think we're all getting used to technology making the communication like we're taking the friction out of to a certain extent out of communication, but we also are getting so used to that in some cases, well, I think the fear is that the young people that, like you said, that are born into it,
yeah.
that's kind of the fear that I have. Like, not so much us, like we're Gen Xers. are kind of a different.
We'll adapt no matter
But
what.
we're completely like, yeah, one will adapt to whatever we need to use to either communicate or get work done, whatever the case may be. Like Gen Xers are kind of known for being adaptable and kind of just doing what we have to do, right? But the fear is that where we're using these things as tools, and we didn't grow up with this stuff. The fear is that the people that were born into it, that this is something that this is the only way they know. The only way they know how to communicate is via technology. Or get creeped out when somebody wants to talk to them in person,
Yeah.
or not know how to have an interaction, or have no emotional intelligence, have
Mhm.
no idea how to kind of read the room, so to speak, or read people's expressions, because a lot of
Mhm.
communication is nonverbal.
Yes.
And if you're never face to face with anybody, if you've never had the experience of having like a personal enough personal interactions, you're not going to pick up on cues from people, right? um so that's one of my fears. Like that's one of the things with my kids that I kind of we try to we're trying to think about like how best to make sure that um they're not using too much technology, right?
Yeah.
Like for us, it's already kind of too late to say like, hey, no iPad, no, or we're not going there. But
Yeah.
we want to make sure that we're monitoring it. We're monitoring the time that they spend on these things, and
Mhm.
that they're having enough kind of healthier interactions outside of being online.
You know the old saying, a craftsman never blames his tools. But now they've grown up in an area where the tool literally does everything for them.
Right, right,
And then when something goes wrong, they don't know why it went wrong or how to fix it. And that's why anxiety is up so much in this particular generation. Like
right.
their inability to cope with and not work their way through their own problems at times. If they can't find it or in the palm of their hand with their computer, they're lost in the sauce, so to speak. It's to the point now where you don't even have to type. You can just talk to your phone and it'll tell you. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
you know what I mean?
I,
Like the
I
funniest thing is it's like
I
they go ahead,
yeah.
go ahead.
No, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but you just reminded me of something I saw on social media where the rapper Joel Santana was arguing that kids don't really know, they don't need to know how to read. They need to be taught how to run businesses. Right?
Yeah.
Which is I'm not gonna go too deep into, into that, but it's just that was a whole funny thing, because he was saying that kids don't really need to know how to read, because nowadays, even with with computers and the technology, you could just talk to it, and you don't really have to you don't have to read or type. For a lot of reasons, I disagree with that,
Hmm.
but you just reminded me of that, because in some ways, there's gonna be people out there that think that, okay, I can just talk to this technology. I don't have to make any effort to really even type,
Yeah.
or there's no everything is frictionless, right, for them.
Dogs.
um
And
and
they write in
that's
hieroglyphics.
yeah,
Everything is shorthand. Everything is,
yeah.
that's the short memory and attention span. Everything they watch is like 30 to 3-minute clips at a time.
Yeah,
Everything squeezed into this small amount of space. So their
right.
attention span, God forbid, you give them sit down and read a book. War and Peace is totally off the shelves for them. You know what I mean? And then if you want, you have audio. You have the audio. You have audio
Right,
everything. So
right. And it's funny that everything you're mentioning, there are things that I even take advantage of too, right? But the
mhm,
difference is that we didn't grow up with that type of convenience and that type of technology, so we could kind of switch between, right? Like there's a
yeah.
balance where I can still have the attention span enough to read a whole book, right?
Mhm.
Or I can sit there and read some instructions, or like sit through a class where we're having like a long, boring conversation, where I
Mhm.
feel like sometimes the kids are not able to hold, their attention span doesn't hold as long, or
Yeah.
they rather they rather listen to the audiobook than ever try to pick up the actual book and start reading. Audiobooks are all well and good. Don't get me wrong. I consume a lot of books via
Yeah.
audio, right? But the thing is, like, a different part of your brain is engaged, obviously, right? Because there's a big difference between an audiobook, like where it's almost the equivalent of me reading the book to you, and there's something to be said for that, because the first books you ever consumed was somebody reading them to you. So I don't want to discount that. But there is like something to be said for sitting there and reading the words yourself, and the way your brain is engaged when you're doing that. The way you're encoding that information is different. So that's definitely one of my fears for my kids, man. Like that, and I shouldn't even call it a fear so much as like something I'm aware of, and I try
Hmm.
to make sure that we're kind of incorporating that balance of experiences. Like we're making sure that they're doing certain things that exercise their brain, um, certain things that can only be done offline, you know.
Yes.
So it's definitely something that we're aware of. And I guess to whoever's listening to this in the audience, like if you have a similar concern, I guess the idea is to be, and we've mentioned this word a lot, intentional.
Hmm.
This comes up every once in a while on our episodes, but I guess the idea is as a parent, of a young child especially, you got to be very intentional about providing those experiences that are going to give them what you think they need, and whatever strengths that you think you have, you have to figure out what what situations and what environment you could create that builds those strengths in your children. So, it's helpful to ask questions and to talk to other people and see how they're solving that.
The other day I even saw a motorized chessboard. So,
I I almost bought one.
like, it's cool.
I'm a, I almost I'm not gonna lie, man. Like I said, man, I'm a Gen Xer, so I didn't grow up with this
It's
stuff.
yeah, it's
So
like
I feel like,
cool. But imagine growing up and your first year at like you don't even have to move your hand to move the actual piece. You
but what if?
understand what I'm
But
saying?
the one I saw, somebody's actually moved. Like, say I'm on the one side. Like, let's say I'm on the black side.
Uh-huh.
There's a white side. What I saw was that if I move physically the black side. The white
Hmm.
side moves on its own in that scenario, right? Like it's not like I'm not doing anything, but I think there is a mode, like you said, like where I can just,
You could just
I don't
sit
know how
back
that
and
would
just
work.
talk to it. I guess you probably will say like B5 to two, you know what I
No,
mean? Or whatever.
so
Dog,
that's kind of over the
that's
top to
next
me. I
level.
haven't.
Yes.
That's next level. And there's applications for that, right? Like
Hmm.
I could see where there would be a use case for that, right? Like especially, let's say that somebody's disabled and all they can do is talk to it, and that gives them kind of a way to play chess, right? Like
Hmm.
I think there's a place for that. But what I saw that I thought was cool that I want is that I can kind of play against the board where I'm moving my
Yeah.
piece and the other side is moving on its own, like
Yeah, that's dope.
countering my moves. That would be incredible for me.
Yeah,
I'm
you
like,
don't look like a lunatic player. Like sometimes, like I would sit down and play chess by myself. I'm like the worst chess player ever, but you know what I'm saying? I try to and I try to like make moves against myself, and I laugh because I'm like, yo, I'm literally sitting here. There's nobody in that other
but a lot of
chair, and
people
I'm
play
just
against,
but
like, but that's not uncommon,
yes,
right? Like,
it's
because
not uncommon.
and
Hmm.
there's something to be said for playing against yourself, right? But
Hmm.
I think that playing against like an artificial intelligence, right?
To have the
The
things
playing
moving
against a
on the other
computer
side.
where it's moving on the other side, and you
Yeah.
don't have to think for both sides, and you're actually playing against something that's actually giving you a challenge, and maybe more so than you would give to yourself. I
Hmm.
think there's something to be said for that, to be honest with you. I was really looking into maybe buying one of those one of those sets. I know that's not where you were going, but I think,
No, but
I got a birthday coming up. So if you want to get me one of those, please do. I'll keep the kids away, so they're still gonna play traditional chess.
There's a there's a difference. There's a difference though. there's a there's a difference between so we came up just learning the game grassroots, like we're moving pieces, learn and we play against each other, we
Sure.
play against some ourselves. But the problem what I see is coming is what if you don't have that background? Do you know what I
No,
mean?
of
Like if
course,
you don't
I
have that
agree.
background, yeah,
I
that's the problem.
completely, I agree.
I mean,
I know, I
it's
kind of.
cool for us because we old heads, but I'm just saying, I'm talking about the Gen Zers. Like, if you've never had to, if you're just there and you don't have to think, you're just playing against a computer with not realizing why these moves on the other side. If you're just being reactive to it, there's not much thought provoking that's going into it. That's what I'm saying.
I definitely
Yeah,
agree.
it is
I
cool though.
think
I mean, I'm not gonna
I
lie,
think the
but
value with that particular one though,
yeah.
like with the game of chess though, the value is in, like you said, like after you've played enough chess to
Hmm.
understand like kind of the foundational. You got to have some foundation to before you start using something like that anyway, right?
Yes.
But I feel like for somebody like me, and then once my kids actually learn the game and they've played a few times and they understand chess, I feel like that's a valuable, that's a nice little tool to have, like where you have a computer actually. Because to me, it's no different than if I play online. Like if I play chess on my phone or something, I'm playing against a computer, or I could be playing against somebody like that's also on the same, the same game online. But you could play against a computer as well, right? So to me, it's kind of a similar thing, except for you have a physical. I'd rather have the physical board to kind of, it's more tactile to me, like where I could actually pick up my pawn and move it and pick up my, like
Yes.
I like the idea that I could have a physical board, but I could get that same experience of having a computer challenge me in a way that I won't be able to challenge myself if I can't find another opponent, right? Like if
Yeah.
nobody wants to play chess with me and I could play against this board that's moving automatically, I think
Yeah.
that's it's a pretty cool
I mean, it's
alternative,
cool.
right?
You could sit like a stuffed animal or something on the other chair. You know what I mean? So you don't feel, you don't. I said
Yeah.
my daughter's
And
my son is
I
like
think
life size Mickey Mouse.
the other use cases that I think I'm not 100% sure about this, but I would think that you would be able to play somebody in it, like, across the world if you wanted to, right?
Oh,
Like
with that physical board?
like
Yo,
if
that would be dope. That would be dope.
yeah,
Like, so
so
it's not like totally online. It's online, but
exactly.
it's physical at the same
It's
time.
online. I have a
Yeah, that's
physical
dope.
board and maybe you have the physical board too, and we sync up and like on your side, the pieces are moving automatically, but on my side, I'm actually moving my pieces, right?
Yeah.
So that's another kind of use case for that, where instead of me telling you like move, pawn B2 to, like, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
I don't even know how the
Yeah,
board
son.
works that
I'm
much.
terrible with how to with
Yeah.
the
I don't.
letters and the numbers stuff.
Yeah, I
Can't
don't know
remember
enough
half of
about
that
it.
stuff. I'm
Yeah,
terrible. I just enjoy playing, but I am terrible,
yeah,
son.
like
I'm
they call it like
terrible.
the rank and file. Like, I don't know enough about that, right? But
hmm
thing is, like, instead of having to tell you like, hey, move the black pawn on your side to, particular square,
Yeah.
I can just move it, and then on your side it moves, and then you don't have to worry about what I did, or when you come, we could even have a chess. We could have a chess game going for months like that,
Yeah.
right? Where you just get back to it when you get back to it, and it probably would even tell you like whose turn it is and everything.
Yeah.
So
So
I know that's not where you were going with it, but you know what? I might get one of those. I want to look into this. I'm glad you mentioned that, because I had forgotten about that for a minute. But when I first saw that, I'm like, yeah, I want this. I want to get this. But I think it was maybe the price was kind of crazy to me
Oh,
too.
dogs, it's probably God knows how expensive that thing
But you
is,
never
man.
know, man. Technology is the
Well,
prices are going down. So I don't know. I'm gonna look it up. I'll let
yeah.
you know. We'll do a facts over funny
See, you can find a
next
Wish
episode.
version. You could probably find a Wish version or
Yeah,
something like that. The
the pieces
pieces.
only move halfway. The pieces will fall over when they try to move. Or the game will just tell you, oh, you gotta start over.
Yeah, just reset.
It's just like, please reset game. Like I don't want to get the cheap version of it and then have to start over. Or have my piece fall.
The other side automatically, you make your first move, the
Or
other
just
side
checkmate.
automatically turns over its
Yeah.
it turns over
The
its
king
queen.
just king just falls and just like checkmate. Congratulations.
Yeah, you won again. You are great.
Yeah, I'm not gonna get the cheap version. I'm gonna get whatever the standard is for that, or I'm not gonna get it. If it's too expensive, then I just won't get it.
You just won't have it.
Yeah, I'll just use my plain old wooden chessboard for now.
Yeah, I have a nice chess set too. I have a nice chess. The worst players have like the best looking set. You know what I'm saying?
Either the worst players or the best players. There's like a mid.
You know what
I got
saying?
the mid. I'm in the midpoint.
I have a nice hand carved looking set. It's very nice. But then anytime somebody comes over my house and they say, "Yo, you play?" It depends on how they say it. If they like, "Yo, I didn't know you play chess, Ranch. Yo, we should get a game sometime." I'll be like, "Nah, I don't really play. It's just on display." But if you don't sound confident about your ability, you'll be like, "Oh, a chess." I'm like, "Yo, you want to play?"
Yeah. Nah, I haven't played. I honestly haven't played in a while. I was trying to teach my son how to play,
Yeah.
but he gets frustrated. Like even actually, my son and my daughter, like a few years ago, they were in a
Didn't
like
they
a
compete?
youth chess. Yeah, they
Yeah.
competed one time. They were in like a youth chess thing, and then
Mm-hmm.
they wound up going to like on the it was one Saturday I remember a couple of years ago, and we took them out and they competed, get like a ribbon if you win and something
Mm.
like that. But they didn't enjoy
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
I'll leave it at that. But they didn't have a
Yeah.
good time.
Yeah.
They did not have a good time. I'll put it that way. And then we didn't go back to that again.
Yeah. So for the Gen Z and the parents of the Gen Zs out there, yeah, we need to get them IQs up, man. You know what I'm saying? Stop.
And
You
then
know, that's a bad look.
so here's the thing with this, right? Like whenever it comes to IQs and we talk about standardized tests, when we talk about all types of statistical data and bell curves, and so me
Mm-hmm.
and you know very
Yeah.
well that this when they put out this information, you got to be careful, right? Because data could be manipulated, data could
Mm-hmm.
be used to just put out something, right? Like, people
Mm-hmm.
are using it for the same way like people use stuff for content. Scientists use numbers. I hate saying this, but sometimes
Nah, it's true. Mm-hmm.
science is used in the same way. It's almost weaponized so people get more attention or more grants or
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
more
When there's
money.
grants, there's money. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's money to do more research.
Mm-hmm.
There's publications that they can get in. There's popularity to this too. There's like credibility to be gained and clout,
Mm-hmm.
so to speak, right? So when you think about this, you got to ask questions when information like that. Because I saw something about this and about how the cognitive level of Gen Zers is lower than millennials. But then you got to think about what is the sample size that they're taking. Like
Mm-hmm.
what's the demographic? What's the sample size? What type of testing are they talking about? Like this,
Mm-hmm.
you got to dig a little deeper before you come to the conclusion. I'm not saying like this is not a problem. I'm just saying that I would like to see more information before I draw the conclusion that's the case overall
Mm-hmm.
because I don't know the extent to which the testing was accurate or what the size of the sample is. Some of it I feel like is sometimes anecdotal, like where we're just thinking to ourselves like, oh, we just got a hunch that
Mm-hmm.
Gen Zers are exposed to social media so much that they, this has to be true. Because if you think about it, man, every generation, pretty much, at least that I'm aware of, thinks that the generation after them is dumb. So, for lack of better
That
term,
is true.
like every generation, they think that like, and there's varying degrees of it, right? Like our parents' generation might not think that we're like dumb in terms of like book smarts. And I apologize for using the word dumb, but you know what I mean. Like
Yeah.
we think that there's some limitations in us because we're living softer than they live
Mm-hmm.
that makes us not as strong or not as resilient or not as intelligent or not as
We didn't have to walk to school
we're not
10
as
miles
quick.
every
Yeah.
day with no shoes and
Yeah.
no
So
socks and
right.
you know what
There's
I mean?
always a
So, mm-hmm.
right. There's a bias that manifests itself like when in between generations, right? The older generation has a tendency to have a bias that the ones coming up behind them are just not as like they're not made of
Equipped.
the
We'll
same
say
stuff,
equipped.
right?
We'll
Yeah, they're
say
not
not
they're
as
not as
equipped.
equipped in
Mm-hmm.
whatever way, right? Like
For
so
life.
so I think
Mm-hmm.
so I think that when you come out with a study like that and you make that conclusion and you put that as a headline, it's easy for older generations to just take it at face value and say, okay, yeah, no wonder, right? So I just want to be careful about that type of headline because it's an easy one to just be like, all right, well, I got to whip my kids into shape. Like when you might already be, be doing everything that you need to do, your kids might be just fine. They're still going to school. They're still taking standardized math and English and
I don't feel like they're necessarily dumber. I lean more towards of on the memory, the lack of focus,
Mhm.
the cognizance, even the common sense when it comes to certain things. What I do know for certain is there's not the same levels of creativity that there has been. And I notice it in like because you're starting to see trends and stuff from when we were kids being recycled. And I know history always repeats itself, but dude, like Ed Hardy is back, son. Like y'all couldn't come up with what's
That's not fair, man. That's
no, and I'm just saying,
that's not
I'm
fair.
just saying. You know what I mean? But if
I
you
know what you're
see
saying,
like
but that's not
you
fair.
know what I'm saying, you see a lot of things that are being like they're not being expounded on upon, they're just being like repeated. Or so I think with the level of creativity, and they are a group that
I'm sorry to laugh at that, man,
like
but
yo
the
dogs. I
fashion
saw
examples and
Ed
the
Hardy is back, son. I
but
can't
anything
believe it.
fashion is kind of fair game, right? Like
Yeah,
that's not a fair one to me because
you know what I'm saying.
everything gets recycled. Like, you know, our parents could have said the same thing about our generation when certain things came back, you know, like so
What did we
everything
wear
comes
that they
back.
were wearing?
I think women were wearing bell bottoms and, you know, I've seen wide collars on, you know, and stuff. Like, you know, like we recycled all their music. Like you think about you don't think our parents were worried about our creativity when we started sampling the music from the 60s and 70s and rapping over it. We
That's
started
a good
talking.
point.
We're a generation that started talking over their records.
Yeah,
We
we're basically
didn't instead
The
of
Gil Scott Heron generation. We're the
yeah,
Gil Scott
instead
Herons.
of yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
instead of
hmm
learning how to play instruments, we decided to play their records and talk over them, man. It's like
But this is but if you think about it, the reason why we had to find a new way was because of the lack of music in the
but
classroom. So we
but that's why I say
adapted.
it's but
We
that's what I'm saying.
adapted.
Like that's why I'm saying it's almost not fair because
You
there's
know,
a list of reasons why you might feel that way. Because when you think about creativity, like you could even bring it to like you said, the art, right? Like
yeah.
because art is
The
so
absence of art in
accessible.
schools, the
But
absence of
but
gym in school. hmm
but there's also the accessibility, like you said, like if you bring up the music example, right, where they took away maybe the music classes in school at a certain point where you know kids had to figure out a different way to make their music, which resulted in like sampling and rap music or what have you, right?
hmm
But if you think about it, like the same is happening with the generations that are coming up after us, like where if you think there's a lack of creativity in the art, that could be because of the fact that it's so easy and accessible to make art with technology as well. There's a lot of things that evolve and make it so it's not as necessary for you to come up with things from scratch, so to speak, right?
hmm
Where maybe our parents' generation, the music that they were coming up with was from scratch. Literally, people were playing instruments, albums were recorded with bands in the studio, and we took it from that to sampling, to using machines to make beats and to take pieces of music
And loop
and loop them, and then we started talking over it. Like I said, like we took their records. Imagine my father, like you know, my father's 80 years old. Imagine he first starts hearing rap, and what he's hearing is records from when he was younger and kids talking over the records that he grew up listening to or that he listened to when he was a young man, right?
hmm
We decided to take those records and, like I said, talk over them. And I know I'm oversimplifying. I love hip hop, but you know what I mean? Like to an older generation, like that's what I mean by the bias that exists in the older generation. If we bridge that gap and we start talking to young people about what they're actually doing, I think you'd actually get an explanation, and it would make sense. I think once you have the chance to have the conversation, because I think the same way we're saying that they took music out of the schools and that resulted in kids finding a different way to make their music, right?
hmm
Um, if enough of the generation that came up before us had those conversations with us, they would have understood that this is how we got to this point, right? In this kind of time where everything's kind of automated and everything's kind of microwave and you can get information so fast, we do need to kind of teach people how to like use that information, how to turn that information into knowledge, right? How to turn all
hmm
this data you're getting so
hmm
fast, turn it into knowledge, turn it into wisdom, turn it into usable tools, right?
Yeah.
There's also something for older generation to consider.
Well,
And
older generations are always that's the circle of life, bro. You know what I mean? And that's what
but
makes these conversations so great. It's always gonna be a
no,
circle of life.
absolutely.
Gen Z's gonna talk about Gen Alpha like this. We talk about the millennials like this. And that's just the circle of life, bro.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? So
Absolutely.
that you know what
Absolutely.
I mean?
And I agree. I agree. I just think that
hmm
like for the folks that can, you know, part
But
of being
those who do have Gen Zs,
yeah.
you do know sometimes they're off a little bit. So talk
Yeah, I mean to be real, yeah. I mean to be
to
honest
be
about it,
real.
like yeah. To
Yeah.
be real, yeah.
Yeah.
Like you know, of course, man. Like if you're in a household and you have some Gen Z in your household, there
Yeah,
are
man.
some things you notice, but all I'm saying is that sometimes you gotta stop and pause and like ask yourself, is this a real problem or is this my bias
Yeah.
as a like an older generation? Like,
They process like you wouldn't believe.
yeah,
You know what I mean? So
but there's
it's
something to
just
be
like
said.
my father could do things like my father could, like we may have gone farther than our parents, but there's things that we can't even compare
Yeah,
to our parents.
absolutely.
You know what I'm saying?
But
So,
Gen Xers did. I mean,
but
as a
technology has expounded so fast.
right,
I think that it expanded so fast that we were forced to expand so fast with it that certain
right,
things now are getting left out, that as parents we should just be like, all right, look, check this out. This is how you
right.
this is how you like grow food.
I mean, yeah, but I get what you're
Yeah,
saying.
exactly. You like when you see a boxer, you say he's outpunched his weight class type
Hmm.
thing. You know what I mean? I feel like they've kind of almost outpunched their weight class to a certain extent with the amount that's coming in. It's too much for the amount that's coming out for them in regards of utilizing it in certain areas in their life. You know what I mean? I feel that's
Right.
what's going on. I think that might be one of the things where they're talking about with like the critical thinking. But it is a good
Maybe.
conversation to have, bro.
Yeah. No,
We
absolutely,
went all
absolutely,
over
man.
with this one,
Yeah,
bro.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Because and there's
Yeah,
a there's it's a valid conversation to have for sure.
yeah.
Um, and I think it's gonna go on forever. I guess is the takeaway.
Yeah, it's gonna
Like
go. It's
every
the circle
generation
of
is gonna
life.
have
It's
this
just a circle
concern,
of life, yo. It's just a
right?
circle of life.
I'm
That's all
at
it
least I
goes.
hope every generation has this concern. I hope there's future generations
I
that
hope
have
so
this
too, man,
this
because that
type of
means we will
concern.
actually have some.
Yeah, I hope this goes on
Because I have a
forever.
Z and some alphas in my house, and you have a Z and some. You have a like a borderline Z and
Yeah,
alphas in your house too. So
yeah.
you
I'm
know
hoping
we
that
got a ways to go.
yeah.
We
I'm
got a ways
hoping
to
that the
go.
conversation keeps going.
But before we end, I got something. I got something to say, man. I want to have a moment of silence.
Huh.
Quick moment of silence for Minute Maid concentrated juice, yo. If many of you guys haven't heard,
Oh
haven't
man,
heard, in 2026 is the last year that you can get that Minute Maid juice from concentrate
yeah, I
from
did
your
see that.
favorite frozen food section of your supermarkets. We have mentioned
We
Minute Maid
definitely,
and fruit
we
and
definitely have.
concentrated juice on a number of occasions on our show. It was a vital part of our upbringing and our existence. So I just wanted to pay that some respect.
No, I agree, man. Like I agree wholeheartedly. That was a big part of my youth. You know, we stretched that stuff out.
Yeah, man. So I think Coca-Cola owns it now. So they said 2026, that's it. This is the last year. So stock up, yo.
But what about
Stock up.
so it's Minute Maid that's done with it?
I know it's definitely Minute Maid.
What
I don't
about
know.
Tropicana was
I don't
the
know.
next
I gotta
best?
look that up. That's so funny or not, son. We still make
Like, wait a minute. You might have me go out and get some Tropicana frozen
Yeah,
concentrate.
gotta stack up. I might have to buy an extra
I gotta
freezer for the crib.
I gotta introduce the kids to that. Stretch that out. You want
Yes,
some
sir,
juice?
man. Little eyedropper. Want an eyedropper of water? And some shit.
We're gonna stretch it. Now we're gonna put a lot of water. We're gonna make it stretch.
Oh man. So this concludes. Oh, shout out to whoever's listened to us in Singapore too.
Oh yeah, yeah. We're international.
I don't know how to say thank you in what do they speak in Singapore, man?
Honestly, I don't know.
Well, we don't
That's
know.
actually
So,
funny.
but thank you for our new listeners in Singapore. This concludes our latest episode of the Gen Expertise Podcast, episode 29. Shout out to our now day 29s, our day ones, and everyone in between. And as usual, and as always, shout out to our day one. And you know what,
Absolutely.
man?
Since we are prolific.
That's right, my man, my brother. We are prolific. We will be back next week. same Gen X time, same Gen X place, on your dial. Until then, power to the podcast.
Power to the podcast.
And peace.
Peace.